let's talk about movies. Oh, Deadpool 2. Longer, crasser, funnier. Deadpool 2 doubles down on what made the first one work. It's a game of one-upmanship, and so expect to see a lot of set-piece scenes from Deadpool 1, only more elaborate and outrageous. This is not a spoiler. This is a spoiler-free review. Not that there is too much to spoil, bar two moments. This is not the point of disapproval, by the way. It is, however, not a point of approval either. The longer I thought about this movie, the more ambivalent my opinion of it was. The first film is indeed a better movie because it has stronger central arc for the protagonist. It is sharper, focused, shorter, in a good way. In other words, leaner and meaner. Both films rely on zeitgeisty jokes, but the second one completely abandons organic storytelling for convenient setups that create opportunity for comedy. The narrative framework of this film owes a lot to James Cameron. I think nobody is surprised by that. However, the narrative itself is flimsy, and because of this, I have a pretty confident feeling that the first one is going to age better. It's like comparing the edgy punk rock LP with an insipid but rich arena rock opera. Some of the jokes in this movie, they will hardly mean anything in 10 years, let alone 20. Now, my method producer pointed out that this patchwork of very contemporary pop culture jabs is exactly what Deadpool is all about. And bear with me, of all things, it made me think about Charlie Chaplin. At the end of the day, Charlie Chaplin claimed he was merely content that he made people laugh. Paraphrasing pretty heavily, but that's kind of the point. On the other hand, the Deadpool franchise is trying to do exactly that too, to entertain. Ryan Reynolds just aspires to make you laugh. However, there is something to be said about the world of difference between Charlie Chaplin's universal comedy that transcends time and culture and Ryan Reynolds' pandering to niche audience at this very specific, very limited moment in time. Gold Rush and Modern Times and City Lights, they will be ridiculous and funny and heartwarming forever. Whereas Deadpool 2 will not. And even though I had fun while I was watching it, I don't really know what to make of that and what to make of the 21st century comedy in general. Now, that's not to say that Deadpool 2 isn't good. It does exactly what it aspires to do. 2 hours of rollicking, wholesome family fun.
So wholesome.
Thankfully, this fun factor stems and spins around our titular main player. Ryan Reynolds is indeed his own greatest invention. He is the not-so-secret weapon of this movie. He ties the flimsy narrative together. He is the protagonist, the theme, the motif, and symbol, all wrapped up into one red, meaty gift with a rosebud on top. In that regard, he reminds me a lot of what Johnny Depp did in Pirates of the Caribbean and what Robert Downey Jr. did in Sherlock Holmes. He just manages to carry the whole thing with nothing but natural charisma, and the film itself has been accommodating and accommodated to what Ryan Reynolds brings to the table as a comedian. I must admit that I was a bit worried going in spite of my confidence that Ryan Reynolds himself is qualified enough. Considering the behind-the-scenes drama, flipping of the directors midway through the production and all that, you could be forgiven for fearing that this would end up being the first in the sequence of diminishing returns, something that also happened to the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. And while Again, it is not as good as the first one. This is a fine film, a fun film, a film that has heart. The heart is in its right place, but it beats with a severe tachycardia. To me, the sequences that try to humanize the protagonist come off as awkward because it creates such a jarring dichotomy between Deadpool's craziness and vulnerability. And I am pretty confident this came from Reynolds' side of the writing table. You can pretty much feel which one-liners came from him, and yeah, fair enough. It's good. Though not even a good comedy can save the last 20 minutes from being a complete slogfest. This is probably a very, very personal impression that most people do not share, but the last half of the final act that transpires in the orphanage was very, very, very laborious for me. It treats every plot beat with such an ear-pounding, over-dramatic heftiness, and yet it is also predictable and loud and tiring. Surprisingly, this section of the film is mostly saved by the supporting players, not Ryan Reynolds. The X-Force and Cable managed to blend into Deadpool's world of craziness quite organically. There is the talk of the possible franchising in regards to some new characters, and the talks goes on off-screen as indeed it goes on screen. Fourth wall breaking, ooh la la, Derrida, yo ho ho, Michel Foucault. It's that word, you know which word. The word I fear to use, yet the word which you love to use.
Oh shit, it's time for postmodernism!
That. This movie has a lot of that.
Postmodernism!
It's 4 out of 5 stars, with 1 star in the bracket. Ryan Reynolds is as charming as ever, and you will get your money's worth when it comes to the number of jokes per minute. And everyone involved try so hard, and they barely manage to pull it off, but they do pull it off. A small caveat for those of you who are going in hyped: you might actually benefit a lot more if you curb your enthusiasm. Try to get in as blank as possible. It will be fun. If you enjoy what you see, give us thumbs up. If you don't enjoy what you see, fuck off.